Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for taking the time here and joining the session. We are going to, we have already started the EIC Summit in the training track talking about patents and how to patent. And we want to go one step beyond, and we want to talk a little bit about how can you manage your intellectual property portfolio, so even beyond the patents per se. And to do this, we have invited today Jörg Scherer and Valentina Grillea. Jörg Scherer, he is the managing director and founder of Eurice, and he has been working for many years now, over 25 years, in research, innovation, and business management services. He is the contract manager of the very well-known European intellectual property IP help desk, and a new service that has been launched that is Horizon IP Scan. He is really an expert helping companies and helping research institutions move their intellectual property, guide them among the different intellectual property support services. And we will be very happy to hear the services that they are offering and how you can do a best use of them. And on the other hand, we also count with the presence of Valentina Grillea. She's the head of scouting and matching of BWCON. She's an expert in innovation ecosystems, and she's also a coordinator of the Deep Tech for Digital Transformation Launchpad, the investment support program of the emerging fields of artificial intelligence and blockchain technologies, supported also by the European Commission. And she's very involved in the leadership for SMEs initiatives on intellectual property valorization. That it's an initiative that addresses SMEs beneficiaries from the EIC. And she's also going to tell you what are the ways to access this service and to help you better manage your intellectual property. So with this, I would like to give the floor to Jörg, please.
Thank you, Veronica. Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen now. So hopefully it works. So to see, maybe then also should work. Maybe it's that you see then the full screen now. So you should be able to see the full screen now. So yeah, thank you very much for attending this session. A good afternoon to everybody. Thank you very much, Veronica, for this very kind introduction. So actually, you already said a lot about myself. So I mean, just want to mention that I'm really involved in European funded projects and innovation management in those projects since Framework Program 5. So actually, my very first project was actually with the scientific coordinator, which most probably you know, all of us. It's Professor Ugo Shahin. I just was really one of my very first projects. And you see, following his career, you see that actually he's a good example how to use European funded projects systematically to scale up a breakthrough, a disruptive technology, and to bring it to the market, actually to different fields of application, because he used the work also to use mRNA, mostly also for cancer research. So, but you see that really there are many chances and good examples of successful IP and innovation journeys derived from European funded projects, and they all have something in common. They all have in common that they all cared about IP, and this is actually the topic of the session today. That we want to tell you that managing IP portfolio or taking appropriate measures for IP management in EIC projects is something we can all do a lot, and then we can prepare ourselves, and we don't be scared. We shouldn't be scared for that. So what I want to do in the first part, before my colleague Valentina will take on, that is just to give you a very brief introduction what might be the role of IP in innovation and business development, and then what are the basics actually of IP management in EIC projects, and then both of us, we will provide you some insights in the existing landscape of IP support measures, which are at your free disposal. And of course, you should benefit from them and make use of them. So actually, from those studies, and that relates to the previous session with the colleagues also from the European Patent Office, it's quite clear that quite clear that SMEs or innovators who are using IP rights are more likely to achieve high growth. And patents and trademarks are clearly linked to business growth. And firms having even more than one typical IP are even more likely to grow. And really, from those studies which have been prepared by the European Patent Office and the European Intellectual Property Office, it became very clear that IP is closely linked to business success. So IP, of course, it's all around us. I mean, from the design of a furniture or lollipop, or the trying technologies of sports clothing, or even the databases we are using at work every day, we notice that IP is always with us. And that's why we should understand, and that it's also broadened the topic from patents to the overall IP scheme. We should understand IP protection and IP management as an opportunity to turn innovative ideas into valuable business assets, which then can be transferred, can be licensed, or used to obtain financing or to boost the business development. So dear colleagues, innovators, I mean, so IPR can also be combined to provide a richer protection over all the aspects of your creation and your innovative ideas. So for example, as we see here in the picture, an SME which provides a pair of trainers can protect the singular characteristics of the innovation, just like, for example, the newly developed technologies like the improved manufacturing processes or the waterproof materials. I mean, these inventions, they can be protected by patents or utility models or trade secrets. Then the new look of the trainers, that can be protected, for example, through industrial design. And the logos can also be registered as a trademark, and the packaging of the pairs can also be protected by trademarks and designs. So there is a question here, how to use IP to grow a business. And it's about, for example, exclusivity. So innovators or SMEs may be the first to enter a new market, and by this, they may exclude competitors. So IPR may also enhance your reputation and increase the corporate value of your ideas. And of course, it fosters commercialization and may ensure a greater degree of freedom to operate. And last but not least, IPR are also an important asset to attract funding and investment capital. So IP is definitely a strong business asset. And please keep in mind, IP represents an important financial and legal asset for companies. And this includes also startups or companies which will be created out of EIC funded projects. It is often estimated that IP counts for more than 80% of the company's value. And for investors, companies with a solid IP portfolio are attractive investment targets. So I would just name 5 simple reasons for this. First of all, it's important to see that IP has no limit on its value. Unlike other asset classes, for example, like buildings or so on, the value of IP can increase without any limit. And IP can be leveraged in many different ways. Licensing is not something just left for the bigger companies. It can be a very profitable business model also for SMEs and startups. As well, since there are very little costs involved to this. And IP portfolio also reduces operational risks. So IP usually works on first to file. So for example, by protecting the brand name in an important country, you can ensure that nobody else can get better rights than yourself to the name of your company and your products in those countries. And companies also seems more trustworthy if they protect IP. So for example, not protecting IP also puts commercial partners in a difficult position. For example, later in the manufacturing and the marketing process, a reseller might be a very motivated not a very motivated partner if infringing products are being sold for knockout prices, and there is nothing that can be done to prevent it. And last but not least, IP rights boost your marketing and your sales. So strong brands enhance business performance primarily through their influence on customers, but also on your employees and potential investors. But it should be mentioned that IP needs action. IP has to be understood, IP has to be protected, IP has to be managed, And sometimes even SMEs or innovators have to enforce their IP rights. And that brings us to the next questions. So what are the specific questions and challenges and opportunities of IP management in EIC projects, and how to find support for that? And that's why I just want to very briefly go into the, let's say, some of the, let's say, ideas to develop, for example, an IP strategy in order to maximize the impact of your EIC projects. So, I mean, many projects actually eventually fail or succeed in generating impact because of the way they handle their intangible intellectual assets. That was also one of the results of the evaluation of the Horizon 2020 program. And the proper IP strategy is therefore crucial to support exploitation of key results by establishing a systematic approach that is needed to capture and to manage the intangible assets. For example, for a follow-up technology upscaling, for a company creation, for licensing, for transfer, or for getting access to finance. And it's up to you, to the beneficiaries in those projects, to define appropriate measures. And the Commission is expected that you present those measures at the proposal stage and you follow up them later during the project implementation. But it's not just to impress the Commission, it's more for yourself, for your own benefit, that you need to agree on how to share access to existing IP brought into the collaboration, how to define ownership of newly generated results, and how to protect, to share, and to exploit the newly created IP. And last but not least, a proper IP strategy and proper IP measures helps you to avoid any IP disputes and to maximize the long-term investment in the projects and all the bunch of projects, of course, funded within the EIC. So a robust IP strategy, of course, increases the impact, and it also shows that you have a thinking which goes beyond the project, by considering the transferability of the results and the uptake and the dissemination of the key results. And of course, the strategy should definitely fit with purpose. So the IP strategy needs to be aligned with the envisaged pathways to outcomes and impacts, and should fit to their ambitions. So of course, there is a very strong relation between your IP strategy and your exploitation strategy, and of course the definition of the key results and the definition of the pathways to bring your key results closer to market. And we all know from our previous experiences in other projects and from the more or less 25 years now the European IP Help Desk is running, that still ownership and the respective rules about ownership is a major issue to enforce or to foster or even to block potential exploitation of project results. So that's, for example, now also in Horizon Europe, we see that the Commission introduced a results ownership list. So there is definitely need to agree on in ownership, which might be the ownership created by a single beneficiary or jointly in the consortium with other partners, or even to agree on the transfer of IP through another entity, which is more likely to have a successful exploitation pathway. And of course, it is important that the different measures to guard and to manage IP will also safeguard the interests of the different consortium partners, for example, to establish rules on publication or on protection and commercialization of IP, of newly created knowledge in the consortium. So that's why you need that kind of plan, but also respective budgets in order to implement the measures which are the most suitable for your individual project. So this just overview shows the main pillars of IP management in an EIC project. So it's first of all to raise IP awareness among the partners and the beneficiaries in the project, as we do today, so that you should have what are the IP policies in place. You know, most of the institutions have their own IP policies, which of course also guide them in the respective exploitation measures. And also you could also implement training on IP rules or IP management issues, which are very sensitive, for example, for your specific project. And then, of course, you build up the IP portfolio, which does not only include the existing, the newly generated results. It also includes, for example, the background brought into the project. And the capturing of results, for example, keeping notebooks or knowing who is the inventor, is of course key in order to develop further strategies, also respecting ownership on and exploitation interests. But also there is a chance, and there is actually a need to do a kind of IP landscaping to see what might be, for example, IP around the project, which even can, let's say, nurture or hamper the patentability of the results or further plans for exploitation. And then, of course, you can include IP searches, for example, through ESPASnet, or even if it gets even closer to market, also freedom to operate analysis as a part, as an activity in your project. And then later, of course, if this fits with your interest, then IP protection is, of course, a very valuable activity in order to strengthen the commercialization potential of your results, and costs related to IP protection and measures could be part of your individual project. And then at the end, you know, of course, there are further steps to be taken to ensure the valorization of your IP through dissemination activities, exploitation activities, or post-project agreements, for example, joint ownership agreements or licensing agreements, which could definitely be a key to ensure a sustainable use of exploitation of results beyond the project duration. And of course, this is also closely linked to another main plan and strategy plan in all the projects, which is the plan for dissemination and exploitation and also communication of results. And, you know, also many, let's say, items and ingredients of the plans are closely linked to IP, like the description of the results, the ownership status, or potential protection measures, which then might be part also of your plan. And you should see the PDE as a main tool, and not just a deliverable in order to please the Commission. It's a main tool to plan your IP and innovation related initiatives during the project lifetime, and to have it ready as a main document also to see what is my strategy beyond the project. So you see there are many things to be done, and which can help you really to have an impactful outcomes from your EIC project. But we know that for some of the beneficiaries, maybe also younger researchers, the SMEs, whatever, they are looking for support on guidance on strategy level, but also when it comes to concrete measures, for example, for IP protection in the projects. And that's why now we're going to present you the, let's say, an overview about the IP support landscape. Just as you see here on the picture, there are many initiatives which are waiting for you, which are calling for your interests. And of course, there are the different help desks which I'm going to present. There is the Leadership for SMEs initiative, which will be presented later. But there are also the boosters and so on. You see there is an, let's say, a table of instruments which we really recommend you to consider, to involve them, to integrate them in your IP and innovation activity plan. And of course, as all of them have, let's say, their specific rules for application and their specific strategic objectives. So I think it's a good idea of this session to give you a short overview. What are, let's say, the main fields covered by the different initiatives. So the European IP Help Desk, as I said, is there since more than, yeah, I think next year, actually, or now in 23, it's 25 years. And it's evolved a lot. At the beginning, it was really, I would say, a more really just if you have a specific question or if you need a specific brochure, you can address yourself to the service. But now, of course, it's much more. And the idea is to raise awareness on IP amongst the beneficiaries of European funded projects. So it's absolutely open to any beneficiary in any funded European project, but also other SMEs which are involved in transnational business activities, for example, also in the framework of our colleagues from the Enterprise Europe network. It's much about capacity building. So it's really, we want to help you not to become a legal expert in IP, but really to use IP systematically for becoming a successful innovator or for setting up a successful startup. And it's providing proficient first line IP support information. It's covering all forms of IP. It's not, let's say, focused or limited to patents. It also includes trade secrets or any other IP or intellectual property management application. And of course, we work with a larger pool of experts covering all the fields. So there is the helpline, which definitely is there. If you have a specific issue, then you can address to the helpline. Of course, everything is confidential. Anything is, we will treat also in an anonymous way. And you can address via phone, email, and you get your answer at the latest within 3 days. Usually we are addressed in English language, but there are also other languages applicable to the service. I just give you a few examples the kind of questions we receive. For example, there are questions about what is the meaning of specific IP rules in the grant agreement, or partners are just setting up a consortium agreement and they have questions about specific IP related rules, or they have questions related to joint ownership or licensing agreements. What we are not doing, I think it's also important, we are not helping you to file IP applications like patent applications or whatever, and we do not write proposal parts for you, or we write you the complete PDE for your project. And of course, we are not, we cannot provide legally binding legal advice. So that's for sure. So if it is very specific, and for example, you need somebody really to draft clauses for a licensing agreement, and you need somebody really to be liable for that, of course, then you should always seek for professional assistance for that. But we are not just having the helpline. So we are regularly producing many guides, fact sheets, and so on. And of course, now all the set of guides and fact sheets we produce for Horizon 2020 will be translated into Horizon Europe. And we just recently published a bulletin about Horizon Europe, which also includes an article about IP innovation management in the European Innovation Council, but also reflecting, for example, also other sets of IP management innovation within Horizon Europe. And of course, we have training modules, and really the training is a success story. So last year, we welcomed more than 12,000 partners in our mostly researchers and SMEs in our training program. And there are a couple of training modules which are specifically dedicated to the needs and wants related to Horizon Europe, for example, how to maximize the impact, or how to deal with freedom to operate issues, and so on. And just go to our website, and then you see, for example, those are the upcoming training modules now for November and December. And also to mention that also, of course, the EIC projects have definitely a focus on developing collaboration among European stakeholders, European SMEs, European researchers. Of course, there might be also an attractive opportunity to look for external markets and to see, for example, how to license results out to non-European markets or whatever. And then also our colleagues from the international SME help desk will help you. So, for example, covering specific IP issues related to Latin America, India, Southeast Asia, or what's really new now since end of October. Also, there is a new help desk on Africa. And so that's what we also want to do, is also to increase and optimize our offer. So that's what we're also looking for, collaborations. And then we very recently also increased our collaboration with the colleagues from the European Patent Office. For example, there is a new set of case studies available, which we will then offer also, or virtual classrooms. The case studies, I think, are very, very important to see real cases, how, for example, SMEs developed a strong IP portfolio, and how they use their IP portfolio, how they manage their IP portfolio to gain a better business growth. But also is important to see, and this is rather new, we will start with that kind of webinar series next year, is to see what is a successful technology transfer from new, let's say, research findings generated at European public institutions. We will cover, I think, a set of 8 or 9 different case studies from different universities and research organizations in different member states, and to see how was the full tech transfer journey and the innovation journey to start a new company and to get those products and services to the market. And what is also, let's say, something coming up next year as our virtual classrooms for researchers, SMEs in specific IP technology fields. And those are the ones we are going to start with. So you see here, it's covering medtech, green technologies, quantum, AI, biotech, and you see all the main, and of course there will be more to come. And this is also a strong collaboration with examiners from the European Patent Office. So we get really those experts in on the table, which are the ones who are going to look at the different patent applications, but we will also provide a broader overview on other, let's say, IP issues around filing a patent. And then last but not least, I would just mention a new service. It was briefly mentioned also already by Veronica, which is the Horizon IP scan. It's a, let's say, an idea which has been mentioned in the so-called IP action plan by the European Commission. It's a pilot action, so we're still trying maybe also to optimize the offering of the service. It is focused on SMEs, I have to say, which is focused on SMEs which are involved in European R&I projects. It is still open for application until, let's say, more or less end of 23. And it's covering all the beneficiaries involved in Horizon Europe projects. The idea behind Horizon IP Scan is to incorporate well-established methods and tools of IP pre-diagnosis. You might know there are that kind of pre-diagnosis services are already available, for example, by the EU IPO or by the national IP offices, so SMEs can apply anytime for that kind of corporate IP diagnosis. But here the idea is more to focus on IP challenges related to collaboration. So also we are focused on the single SME. We try to see what are the chances, opportunities, or risks of IP management of SMEs which are involved in collaborative research and innovation projects. And it is focusing on beneficiaries which are at the start of the project, even in the grant preparation phase, but also in the first, let's say, up to 6 months of the projects, and to help them develop a strategy or to help them to overcome any risks, challenges, or maybe doubts they see, how to get the background into the project, or how to see what needs to be done to protect the new results, or how to develop joint IP ownership schemes, and so on. So you see here again, in a nutshell, that's how to apply for, if you are in the preparation of your grant agreement, or you just started, or the third scenario, which means that you made use of the Horizon Results Booster, and during the analysis of the booster, it was more or less seen that you have a major IP issue, and then you can, in addition, also apply for the Horizon IP scan. So the benefits in detail are that you increase your overall IP awareness, you get a clearer picture of your IP brought into the project, you better understand what are the IP clauses you already established in the grant agreement, but even more, what is your flexibility and chances to establish maybe even better IP clauses in the consortium agreement, which fits better with the interests, or let's say, of your company, or even with the nature of the project. And of course, to manage jointly created and jointly owned knowledge, which definitely is always one of the main barriers for successful exploitation. So it runs like this. It's not too much of workload actually for the beneficiary, because most of the work is done by an external expert. So you apply, then the expert will call you up for a first pre-interview. It's maybe half an hour or an hour, and then the expert will just look at your case, and then there will be another interview for 2 to 3 hours. Then you will get an individual report. And then the idea is also that you get a debriefing together with your colleagues from the projects, which also applied for the same service, and you have a kind of a group debriefing, and your, let's say, workload should not be more than 1 or 1.5 days. So you can apply. It's on a first come first serve service. The service, and you see that here, is usually done in the language of the respective beneficiary. So we always have we have a large network actually of experts from the different EU member states, so that usually you can make your choice whether you want to receive the service in English or in your respective national language. And the application is very easy. You just go to the website of which is operated by the European Commission, or you just click on Horizon IP Scan, and then you just fill in the online application form, and then you will get an answer in 2-3 days whether your application is eligible, and then you will follow up more or less a guided structure, how to get in contact with your expert and how to do the service and so on. So you see here, it's a new service, but it's really, I would say, pretty much suited to your needs in a collaborative project. And we would then be very happy to see your application, for example, being an SME beneficiary in an EIC transmission Pathfinder project or transmission project. So it would be really fine. And we would be happy to see your case and then to offer that service to you. And of course, worth to mention, service is of course free of charge. So there are no costs for you. So that was just a wrap up. Let's say from our point of view, what is the rationale and the overall strategy by having a better understanding of IP management in the life cycle of an EIC project. It's not just the protection phase, it's also to look at your IP brought into the collaboration, to see what is the best strategy to join up with your colleagues in the consortium, to see what are the added value, what should be done by more or less following a specific exploitation pathway, or by doing something in common. There is more than one innovation stream or exploitation pathway, because also we usually see there are more key results to be exploited than one. And of course, so you might come up with a selection of different innovation pathways or IP management strategies for the different key results generated in your project. So I wish you all the best for your project or for your future applications. And of course, we are always there for your questions. So giving back to Veronica, and thank you very much having the chance talking to you.
Thank you very much. So now I propose that I give the floor to Valentina, and then at the end we take all the questions together, okay? So please, Valentina.
Yes, hello everyone. Jörg, if you stop sharing, then I might be able to do. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Thanks. No
Yeah.
problem. Perfect. So advise me if you don't see the presentation the right way, but I believe that should work. Hello everyone, also from my side, thank you for the invitation, and thank you also to Jörg for the perfect assist that he made. And again, I just recall what also Veronica was mentioned. My name is Valentina Grillea. I work for BWCON, which is in charge for the leadership for SMEs initiatives. And for you to know about my background, we support small and medium enterprises and startup through all the process that goes also with regards to the IP, but mainly more on the investment strategy and connection to investors. So this is also where leadership for SMEs may be a little bit different than comparing to the services that has been presented until now. Saying that, happy to collect any questions. So I've seen that some of you already used the chat. Feel free to also post them. We will answer them later on. So why the Commission decided also to invest time and money in the pilot action, which is the leadership for SMEs. The fact is that, has been already mentioned, some of the companies are already, let's say, developing by their own IP strategies, but maybe what is still missing is really the definition and then implementation and improvement of the IP strategies from the perspective of the investors. And this is where we see leadership for SMEs as a possible solutions. We are also in a piloting phases. We started the initiatives 1 year ago, and we run until the September 2022. And there are different type of services that we are make available to all SMEs. What is different, maybe comparing to the previous services, that the leadership for SMEs is addressing also single startup and SMEs. So we are not looking, we are going to welcome, of course, SMEs that has experience in European projects and in consortium, and that want to improve the IP strategies developed within the proposed project, the European project. But we are also helping SMEs that are, let's say, outside of the European or public funding scheme, and that they want to develop or improve their IP strategies. So also the, let's say, independent institutions and standalone company. On that, we do have also specific focus on the IC beneficiaries. So we have done already some activities with them, and what we are looking for is also to help the IC beneficiaries, so companies part of the IC accelerator, that now, let's say, have the booth from the European Commission to develop further the technology. And we are there also to help them in parallel to develop in the right time and with the right people and experts, the IP strategies related to the product. This is what we aim to do. And who is we? I mentioned already about BWCON, so we are not alone in doing this. And as you can see, we do have a pool of experts that cover all the aspects relevant in this journey. We are rely on experts on the IP, IPR strategy, and technology transfer. I'm not mentioning them; they are more than well known in these sectors. We are also on board. We have on board in the consortium private funding, so. Private institutions such as a bank that has their own funds, or Aster, which is an active investor in the sectors. And then there are some other institutions such as BWCON, which is quite active with a large connection and network of investors. We rely also on an advisory board that has also experience in the IP and connection to financial instruments. So what is the offer? I go straight to the point. It's a pool of services that we make available to selected companies, and is also a community that will allow you to refer to some materials that we make available for free, that might let you to have also matchmaking opportunities with some of the investors and the financial players that are part of the community. And of course, the community is for free, so you don't have to, let's say, apply and be selected to be part of the community. This is a services that is available to everyone. I know that we will be able also to share the presentation, so I will be more than happy to send this back so that you have all the link and all the opportunities that I'm going to present you. At the moment, we started more or less 12 months ago. We have more than 500 members. The community is integrated in a larger community, so the numbers that I'm going to show you here are just, let's say, the ones that are working actively in leadership for SMEs, but this aim to grow as we started the first bunch of services just a few months ago from September on. At the moment, we are working deeply with more than 10 financial intermediaries and the IPR experts from all over Europe, also quite valuable ones. I just report some of them. If any of you identify themselves such as an external partner, so someone that can propose themselves such as an expert, also please come back to us. We have also opportunity for you to be part of the community and to, let's say, be identified as potential innovation intermediaries or IP intermediaries. What about the state of art right now? What we have done? We had the call for application last year. I don't recall how many applications we had, but then we were able to select those beneficiaries. As you can see, out of all, I think there are 50% are part of the EIC accelerator. So we try also to have a balance to give the opportunity to benefit from the pilot, not only to EIC accelerator, but also newer companies that are still, let's say, approaching all the EIC ecosystem. And the services that we offer are, of course, for free, and they go through a different type of categorizations. And as you can see, we have different categories that go really on promoting and marketing the IP, or to legal protection related to the IP, but also the economic value that you can rely on the IP strategies that you have. And all the numbers that you see, they are really referring to the number of services that we offer for free. It's quite a complex, so let's say, process. I just share this, which is a lot of information, but just to let you know that if you are selected and you're part of the project for free, you can rely on some experts that can help you through this journey. We validate your IP strategy, we improve, so experts from the sector will improve the strategies, and also based on your needs, we will then finalize the exploitation, which could be also towards investment, public or private funding, and all the references are also related on the community, or you will get support from the experts of the consortium or external consortium. The good news is that we are really now looking for new participants, and that the application is open, is running. If you go on the website, you find all the references. We are looking for SMEs and startup, as I mentioned. So this is the only eligible criteria, apart from the fact of being based in European member states. And of course, the one that already applied, unfortunately, we cannot include and support them for a second time. But apart from this, I invite you all of you that are struggling in fine-tune your IP strategies, and also wants to understand the valorization of your IP strategies with the eyes and perspective of the investors, to have a look of leadership and to apply for it. We offer also some time of specific trainings. The trainings that we offer also, as you can see, refers a lot on the integration of the IP and how you can leverage the IP for raise funding. This is another opportunity that we have actually on Friday this week. I will take the freedom to post in the chat the link for the registration. It will be a session where we have several experts from all over Europe and from different backgrounds, so from the legal, technology transfer, IP transfer, but also the financial part. And this is a kind of training that can be for your interest in any case, if you decide to apply, and if not. We are also promoting this in the EIC community. So if you don't want to wait for me to post in the chat, just go in the EIC community and you will find the news. And the event, of course, is for free. And you see also here the contact of my colleague. I think I'm done. So this was my last slide. I really appreciate the time you invested in follow the information about leadership. I will now give the floor to Veronica, I think, back.
Thank you, Valentina. Thank you, Jörg. I think there has been some questions in the chat. Jörg has been replying to them, but in order to make everybody aware, I mean, for the IP scan, is there any deadline where people have to apply?
Actually, there's not. It's an open call. It's open until end of 23. Okay.
And regarding the IP help desk, yeah, you were talking also about there is the need of sometimes IP consultants or IP firms. Is there a repository of trusted partners that they can access in the IP help desk, or how can you take the needs? I mean, how can you refer those that are in need of this service to this kind of firms that they deal more with intellectual property?
Yeah, of course, this is a very sensitive question. We will never point out a very specific IP attorney or lawyer, but we have developed also together with the European Commission a signposting directory. So also using the existing, let's say, umbrella organization of the patent attorneys or trademark attorneys, for example, the European Community Trademark Attorney Association. And we can guide you to those lists which are available so that you can make your own selection. We will not do a specific selection for you, but we can help you to see what are the, let's say, opportunities to get access to those lists.
Okay, thank you. And for you, Valentina, I mean, is there a cost for the applicants to use the leadership for SMEs?
No, it's of course for free. And I would take this opportunity also to say that the deadline is the 3rd of December. So we're speaking about the deadline. The webinars and the next training is this Friday. I put the link in the chat, but if you aim to apply, if you're an SME, if you want to apply, our deadline is the 3rd of December, and unfortunately will be the last call. So this is the last chance to benefit from the services that, again, are everything for free, such as also the community. So let's make available to everyone.
And one issue, I mean, in order to apply to this leadership for SME, do you have to share sensitive data, especially on intellectual property, or how?
Thank you for the questions. This is a redundant questions, which is, I understand the sensible aspect with regards to the IP. For the application, you don't need to share any sensitive data. It's for us just to understand how far are you with your IP strategy. We do not validate or evaluate. I mean, the experts are not going to validate the quality of your patent. This is something that will be done as soon as you are selected. But of course, we do have an NDA with all the experts that are going to work closely with you. They are, let's say, you are protected by contract. So this is made on the most safe side for you.
Okay, thank you. And there is another question. I think that's more for the IP help desk. Do you have a standard licensing agreements for EU-funded projects? I mean, you have said that you don't provide legal binding documents, but do you know, or also work on, especially for those that they come with a greater research background? Yeah.
What we usually offer is that we have, for example, we have a fact sheet and we have a list of all the components which should be part of our standard licensing agreement. And we also offer access to existing templates, for example, offered by, for example, specific national IP officers and so on. So if you ask the question to the helpline, of course, you may also first have a look in our publications, which are more or less referring to licensing issues. But then if you go to the helpline, they will also help you to get access to existing templates, because, you know, licensing agreements, of course, they are quite different. I mean, it depends actually what is the purpose of the licensing and where are the partners involved in the licensing agreement. And that was because there was a previous question which refers to that as well, which was referring to the role of TTOs, the role of technology transfer officers in the IP and innovation lifecycle. And of course, I mean, your TTO definitely, being a researcher, your TTO definitely has some templates and the licensing, let's say, drafts, which agreement drafts, which might be highly relevant for you. So we should not forget that we have there also in the different research organizations, universities, we have those experts. And definitely, for example, when it comes to establish ownership agreements, like also the results ownership list or related joint ownership agreements, being a researcher, you should always also get your TTO partner in at the table. They should be part of the game. Don't forget that.
Okay, so we are 1 minute to go. I just want to close with one remark that Jörg says, like, I mean, you don't have to think about the IP strategy just to please the commission or just to get a grant. you have to think about the IP strategy, because you don't have to impress anyone with this. I mean, it's really in your own benefit. So that's something that people have to have in the back of your minds whenever you enter into a technology project. That's a reality. And on the other hand, the good thing is that you are not alone. There is a whole set of services that are at your disposal. I know sometimes it's quite difficult to navigate along these services, but please make use of the things, because the final aim of the EIC is that you succeed, that your innovation goes further, that IP is not a problem, and there is all these kind of services around offered by the Commission, by the EIC, by DigiGrow, the ERTD, that will help you on that. So with this, I want to close. Thank you very much, Valentina. Thank you very much, Jörg, and to all the participants. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.